I was sitting at the bar with my girlfriend, celebrating his next breakup with another girl. Why him? Because my girlfriend's name is Sergei, which begs another question. Why a girlfriend? Sergei and I have known each other since we were kids. Our moms are best friends. We live on the same playground, and we both don't have fathers. Well, we do. But mine has another family, and Sergei died when Sergei wasn't even a year old. They made almost no distinction between us, so we were equally pampered and beaten by both moms. When one of our mothers worked the night shift, the other would take her baby to her place. We played, walked, slept, and even bathed together until one of our grandmothers saw it. What did she say to our moms? But they never sent us to the bathroom together again. We continued to do everything else together. We went to kindergarten together, then to school, where we sat at the same desk for 11 years then. And then our paths diverge. I got into economics, and Sergei into polytechnics. They tried to call us bride and groom. But what kind of bride and groom could there be? If we knew each other like peels, that's what my grandmother says, which means from and to. Though our paths had parted, we continued to be friends. We told each other everything that happened to us. We shared our problems with studies, teachers, relatives, classmates, and lovers. Except that when I broke up with another boyfriend, I'd cry on Sergei's shoulder, and he'd pour me a glass of wine and tell me that all men are assholes. And when he broke up, he'd drag me to a bar where we'd drink beer and beer snacks half the night and then go to a club and party till morning. Somehow, we perceived love relationships differently. For Sergei, it was always just another adventure, and I was waiting for real feelings. That night, we also went the same way. After sitting at the bar, we decided to move to a club. The club was not far away, and we decided to walk there, but we never made it to the club. The road was blocked by some two guys who, as we soon found out, had come to avenge Sergei's ex-girlfriend, the breakup with whom we had celebrated. Did I mention that Sergei and I went to boxing? No, or rather, I went until my first knockout, after which I suddenly had no desire to go to boxing. Sergei, on the other hand, still does. We decided that the best defense, the offense, and while Sergei knocked out one, dealt with the other, I rushed to catch a cab. By the time I caught it, Sergei managed to get away from the attackers, and we, loaded into the car, shouted in unison, "Goni!" The driver didn't have to be persuaded. He took off as well as a Formula One racer. Getting out of the car by the house, Sergei sadly said, "Somehow it was an unfortunate celebration." I decided to reassure him. "If we celebrate every time you break up, we'll get drunk. And if we don't celebrate, they come back. Well, maybe it's for the best. Maybe you'll get serious. Think about your family. I've been thinking and realized that the ideal woman I'd want to marry is you, but I haven't found another one yet. Listen, it's still a baby time. Our store is still open. Let's go get more." All I could say to his speech about marriage. And then you somehow just did not finish celebrating. Sergei put his arm around my shoulders and we headed to the store. I couldn't sleep half the night. I kept trying to figure out why Sergei's words had gotten to me. I tossed and turned, looking for a reason, but it eluded me. Then I decided to think about who I would marry. Indeed, I hadn't really had a long and productive relationship with boys lately. So, what kind of man do I need? Kind, strong, cheerful, so that he could stand up for me, so that he could comfort me in a difficult moment, so that it would be easy for me to be with him, and I could be myself. Also generous and handsome. Yeah, my needs. There are no such men. Well, or I haven't met one yet. Except Sergei. I imagined me and him as lovers. It didn't feel right. It was embarrassing, like I was falling in love with my own brother. But my fantasy ran wild. I imagined scenes more erotic than ever. Vyur, calm down, Nastasia. The next day, I couldn't look Sergei in the eyes. My sick fantasy wouldn't let me go. Nask, let's go to the countryside. On the weekend. Where and with whom? It's my classmate's birthday party. Everyone will be with their girlfriends. I'm not your girlfriend. Can you imagine how it would look? Like pioneers. Dan, Nasha, why can't you play along? We'll just say that you're my girlfriend. They don't need proof. They don't care what kind of relationship we have. I can't tell them you're my best friend. They wouldn't understand. Okay, all right, fine. That's fine. I'll pick you up early on Saturday for some counseling. Consultant. Fig of. I thought without anger, but I said nothing aloud. Sergei, as promised, came to pick me up on Saturday morning. I quickly got dressed and we left. We took the train into the city, and 2 other couples joined us on the way. Sergei introduced me to them, and by the time we got there, we were already chatting like old friends. The party went on as usual. The guys grilled barbecues, the girls chopped salads, and from time to time, everyone gathered around the table to drink and congratulate the birthday boy. When everything was ready, everyone settled around the same table, and the party began to escalate. Sergei behaved like a real boyfriend. He courted me, put food on my plate, added wine, hugged me periodically, and even kissed me on the cheek a couple of times. I tried to smile sweetly and not pretend that these touches didn't make me feel the way a mere friend should. It was the first time I'd ever seen Sergei so in love. Sergei's classmate came up to me when the boys went out for a smoke. I think her name was Oksana. Come on, Oksana. The usual dance of a boy who wants to get into bed with the girl he likes. I answered a little rudely, but inside I somehow all rejoiced. Believe me, I've seen all his dances. Oksana laughed. This is a new one. Our smokers came back. Closer to the evening, everyone began gradually separating into their couples. The implication was that we would spend the night at the birthday boy's cottage. Sergei and I went into the house. He went in search of a spare room, and I went in search of the bathroom. I wandered down the hallway of the first floor and found nothing, so I decided to go to the second floor. Near the stairs, I bumped into the birthday boy, who wasn't smiling well. Can you tell me where I could find the bathroom? I decided to distract him from his bad thoughts. I know who you are, he said instead of answering, and he grabbed me by the torso and dragged me somewhere under the stairs. You're not his mistress, you're his woman friend. He told me about you once. So you're my present. What the hell kind of gift? I tried my best to fight him off. Why do you think he brought you here? To rest? No. For me is a present, because I'm without a woman, and I need sex. I opened my mouth to scream, but he slapped me in the face with all his strength, and the desire to yell fell away. Suddenly, some force threw him off me, and losing my footing in his grasping hands, I dropped to the floor. Some man was sitting on the birthday boy, beating him savagely. He was screaming and wriggling around. There was blood all over his face. The rest of the guys ran in on the noise. They dragged the beater away somehow. You broke my nose, you jerk, the birthday boy yelled. I'll break your arms if you touch her again. I recognized Sergei in the man who was talking. He came up to me, helped me up, and cleaned myself up. Let's get out of this crib. Sergei and I walked along the path through the woods to the train station. He threw his jacket over me and put his arm around my shoulders. It was dark everywhere. The clock was 12 at night, and only the flashlight of Sergei's cell phone illuminated the road. In another situation, I would have cried out with fear and ran at the speed of light to the platform, not knowing the road. But now I just tried to walk at the same speed as Sergei. I felt so hurt and ashamed, as if my feet had been wiped on me. My cheek and arms were sore above my elbows. I felt unbearably sorry for myself, and I cried silently. Tears poured down my cheeks like tears from a faucet. Finally, we arrived at the station. The fact that it was a train stop was only indicated by a booth on the platform, marked ticket office, and a small bench. We looked at the schedule of electric trains, written on a small sheet of paper and pasted on the window of the ticket office. The nearest one was in 4 hours. We were lucky to find a zhigulak with a sleeping little man inside, not far from the platform. I was in the car, and then we were on our way back to the city. I, burying myself in Sergei's shoulder, continued to cry. He was holding on to the fact that his t-shirt was gradually getting all wet. "You can't go home dressed like that," he said when we got to our door. "Aunt Katia will have a heart attack. Let's go to my place. My mother's in the night anyway." I imagined what would happen if my mother saw me with a swollen cheek and a sunburned face, and I agreed, especially since I was going to a party for the night. We went into Sergei's apartment. He gave me my mother's robe and a towel, and I headed for the shower. After the shower, he called me into the kitchen. There was a bottle of cognac on the table and a simple snack, a sliced lemon and a chocolate bar. I drank the first shot without snacking and was about to cry again. I was in a hurry, and while I was flapping my eyes and trying to say something, he quickly gave me some ointment on my cheek. "Are you out of your mind?" I finally regained the ability to speak. "I was just distracting you from sobbing. You would have washed the ointment off with your tears." "Ah," I grumbled. "Well then, pour it." After talking to half a bottle, we decided that it was time to go to bed. Sergei made my bed in his room, and he went to sleep in the living room. I was disappointed. For some reason, I felt like he wasn't treating me like a friend anymore. I thought he would try to comfort me like a man. But I went into his room and decided to look in his closet for something to sleep in. I found a t-shirt, took off my robe, and he kissed my neck, barely touching my lips. I turned toward him. He stared into my eyes with a mute question. I let go of my eyelashes. In the morning, as I'd assumed, I was ashamed. I was afraid to look Sergei in the eye. He got up, got dressed, and went to the bathroom like nothing had happened. I was going to run away, but I didn't have time. "The shower is free." He peeked into the room. "You can go while I make breakfast." I was stalling for time, afraid to get out of the tub. Calling myself stupid, I got out. I pretended it hadn't happened, or that I was completely indifferent to what had happened that night. He came up to me, hugged me, and kissed me so hard that all my plans went to hell. We broke away from each other and started breakfast. "Sergei, how are we going to do it now?" "What do you mean, how? What happened between us? What happened between us should have happened a long time ago. You just didn't want to see the obvious things." "What things?" "That I love you." "How long has it been?" My knees shook under the table. "Since high school. You've just always treated me like a brother, and I was too shy to tell you how I felt. So I had to play along." I got up from my chair, walked over to Sergei, and sat on his lap. I took his face in my hands, looked into his eyes, and kissed him the way he had kissed me before. We sat there and kissed, forgetting about breakfast. "What, are you getting ready for the wedding?" Our mothers were standing on the kitchen doorstep. "Yes." My ex-boyfriend Sergei and I answered together.